that's what I mean. Like, until he's able to show me like a study where it was like, make the monkey raise its right hand, and the monkey raises its right hand without training the monkey to raise its right hand and give it a treat and, you know, do all that stuff, where it's actually like the screen made the monkey raise its right hand, and then the screen made the monkey turn around, the screen made the monkey do a somersault, right? Like, it's just... All right, we're back, guys, with the PEM podcast, and we are ditching the disguise. We've got a good handle, I think, on the policy issues with Google and with most of the streaming channels. We were doing some experimentation there for quite some time. We lost a couple channels, fully deleted, so we learned some lessons there. I think we're through the woods on that, so we're ready to just go full ahead. My real name's Dorian, the founder of Psychedelist, and so we're not going to be Worthington anymore. Going to be doing some usual videos and reactions and seeing what we got. Premise of the channel is the same. It's all about ego management. I had an interesting day today. Had an ego management situation in which I've been close to failing in some situations, letting the ego get away from me sometimes. It's definitely difficult dealing with certain people. Sometimes you get people who are just toxic and just hurl insults and accusations. And for me, that's not a real problem until it starts to affect business, or it starts to be an attack that is kind of can affect public perception around the company we're building, things like that. And they're making baseless false accusations on public forums, things like that. So I had a guy who commented saying we were a big scam and all this stuff, and then immediately called in afterwards. And I was like, man, why are you commenting like that? And then he just went off on me. And so tried to speak some sense into him, but there was a certain amount of butting heads. And in that circumstance, I would say, you know, I was at a below a C minus. That was probably a D. I grade myself a, you know, F through A, basically, when it comes to certain interactions. And sometimes I do well, sometimes I don't. But that's what the channel's about. It's about managing ego. And for definition of ego, you know, you'll have to stick with the channel for a while, because the definition of ego is not that easy of a thing. It's a particular persona within all of us that tends to be concerned with competition and identity and attachment to identity. We'll talk about it more. So we're going to get into some reactions to these videos, see what we got, and we'll do a normal episode, see what's going on.
Okay, so that I stay safe and I can come back and I stay alive, I want to tell you something. I will give you a hint to what he showed me. It's going to happen. And you have to get rid of these metals in your body. And I know exactly how to do it very easily. If you want to do it fast and quick, it would be green drinks. There's something with chlorophyll that has to do with, it matches, it's very close to your blood in its structure. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so you have to have a carrier that will grab things and take them out of your body, okay? So if you want to know what's going to happen, and it could happen tomorrow, it could happen, but they're going to say it's something else. You're going to have to do your own thinking about this. I don't want to get in trouble. But just stick a piece of foil in a microwave and picture that in your body. Because you can't see a microwave, but you can see the results of it when it's present. And you know to not put foil in the microwave, because you just do it once, and then you have a fireworks show that the neighbors talk about, because frequencies affect different things. And if something is coming that is intentional, if it hits something that stops it, then it starts to heat up because of resistance. If it can't flow through you, then it starts to cook. And that's what I saw. It's pending. They're going to say it's something else. This is evil. There's all kinds of stuff. They're fighting content on the ground and everywhere. We don't know even how this barium and all this stuff is getting here. It's like dropping out of the sky. It's everywhere. Why all these heavy metals? Where is it coming from? The bottom line is, yeah, I know, please don't, We know that, but bottom line is you got to get this out of your body. They've been developing these weapons with frequencies for a long time. So these frequencies that fry electronics, and they're already. I can't say anything. I apologize, but you just go out and look around where you live, because it's coming. But if there's nothing in you, so Jesus said that the evil one's coming, but he has nothing in me. So that's what I'm trying to tell you without telling you.
I mean, this is coming too, and I know half of you probably won't believe it. I'm just believing that you will. But the technology is already here. You need to shield your phone at night. You need to turn it off. You need to shield it and get it away from you. What's coming is advertisements through your phone on the wavelength that your brain can receive it. It's already out. I'm just telling you. You wouldn't even. I mean, I can't say but it's a. You got one right down the street. They're already going to do it. They've already announced it. The technology. They're going to advertise through your phone, and you're going to pick it up here.
All right. So one thing. Okay, first of all, I am not anyone who's an expert in electromagnetic frequencies. I'm not a radio expert. I'm not a physicist. I studied some layman's books. I have a background in mathematics, but I haven't studied all this stuff. But one thing I'm going to point out here that I see a slight issue with, he's mentioning these heavy metals, which, let's set a baseline here. Heavy metals in your body are not good for you. Most of the heavy metals are carcinogenic or cause some sort of nervous system damage or things like that. And again, I'm not a environmental health or internal medicine person who understands this stuff 100%, but I understand basic things, kind of like a jack of all trades in certain areas where I understand things. But this is what I'll tell you. The problem that I have a little bit with what he's saying here is microwaves are a problem no matter what. So what I mean is microwaves will cook a piece of chicken without any heavy metal in the chicken. A microwave will heat up a bowl of water, a cup of water, without any heavy metal in the water. I was interested a while ago, and so I've kind of already forgotten it, but I wanted to look up exactly what makes microwaves work, and it has something to do with the way it moves, I believe the way it moves water molecules. Someone else who probably knows far better than I will be able to chime in here and say, you're an idiot the way you're describing this. So I'm not claiming anything here, but I read about it a bit, and then it kind of went in, one ear out the other type idea where I read about microwaves. I was just interested. I was curious, and I believe something was mentioned about water molecules and moving them in resistance. Again, very vague here. I'd have to pull up the article and reread it to really get it back in there. But my point being, logically speaking here, right? Would they need to put heavy metals into us? It's sort of a conspiracy idea to cook us with microwaves. I don't think so. You don't want to be exposed to microwaves. No matter what. I think if you were exposed to microwaves, regardless of heavy metals, you're going to have a problem. Now, I don't know if that means if I don't know how that works as well, like concentrated beams of microwaves, how much. I know there's microwave radiation even coming from the sun, right? And our atmosphere does a certain job of, filtering out the different electromagnetic frequencies that are really bad for us, like gamma rays, and things like that. The higher level frequencies that are a real problem, including microwaves and X-rays and things like that. So that's the only logical thing that I kind of see that's a little off there. Is I don't believe, and someone else could correct me, I don't believe that you would need the heavy metals to cook everyone if somehow they're just going to release like a huge dose of microwave radiation. I guess that would be my immediate kind of wondering how there seems to be a disconnect, at least for me, and the minimal understanding I have. On the other hand, the heavy metals are definitely no good, and I don't know how much this is conspiracy. I think that when we look at the people that are wealthy and in positions of power that are really running this world, the one percenters, whatever you want to call them, are interested in making money at any cost. It seems to me they don't care and never really have cared about the peasant class, us little people down here that have to drink the water and breathe the air, those things. And even though they have to also drink the water and breathe the air, they're able to, have the big piece of land and have the clean water and have so much resources that, at least for the time being, they're able to avoid the consequences. But we're all living in this closed system called Earth, and eventually it's going to affect them as well. So I think it's rather short-sighted. But, I don't know that. Sometimes one of the issues I have, right? What is going to be the point of this event that he's talking about? Like, people are going to be cooked, right? And I imagine they're going to be dead. I don't know what he's saying is going to happen, because obviously he kept saying, I can't talk about this, I'm going to get in trouble or something like that. Is he saying that there's going to be some sort of like mass kind of genocidal thing or whatever, where huge amounts of people are murdered basically because now we got the heavy metals in us and the microwaves? If you've heard me talk about this stuff back when I was wearing the disguise, I've talked about population control before. The issue I have with population control is if you look historically at the way population amounts and densities affect the richer people and the royalty classes, it works in the opposite direction, meaning the more people are, the richer the rich become and the less valuable we become as individuals. So it doesn't really work in their favor to control population. So I'm not sure if that's what he's saying. If he was saying, hey, they're going to eliminate a bunch of people and we're on that population kind of diminishing thing, like get rid of the populations. And I know there's like this, I've thought about this further, because there's this idea that I've come across is like, well, what's it going to mean when technology achieves maybe some level where they don't need us as much? But see, what the problem I think with that is, if you're kind of envisioning a world where they eliminate, I don't know, 80% of the world's population or something like that. Now it's all just the rich people, and then they're served by robots or something in tech, and that's how they're sustaining their same like level of, lifestyle. Their lifestyle and life, the cushy, experiences that they're getting, the amenities of being wealthy. I don't see how it's going to work, because then now they're all equal. Now these people are all kind of wealthy, and they can't order each other around and make them do their work. And yeah, they can tell the machines to do that. But I'm wondering where this world ends. And I think we need a far more talented science fiction writer than myself to kind of look at that, because then I think you're also looking at maybe sex robots and machines that are fulfilling that. Because you have to understand also, look at Epstein, look at all these things, right? What do these rich people do? They kind of prey on poor people for their sexual gratification, for their validation, for the feeling of, oh, look at what a big shot I am, for all the kind of egoic stuff we talk about. So there's just so many things that I'm unsure about the really long projected future idea of where we don't really need maybe the peasant class to do these menial jobs anymore. Then maybe there becomes a real danger, I guess, of eliminating folks. But there's a few things that I think have to be addressed there for that to sound like, okay, it's a real threat. Now these rich people do want to get rid of us so they can live in this utopian population minimalistic world, and yet all of their egoic needs are met, the validation, the worship, the sexual needs, all the amenities and cushy life. So I don't know. That's what I see there. I don't know if he's talking about population kind of diminishment or what he's saying there. So that's a concern for me, just in the argument of logically speaking. On the other side of that, I think companies just release pollution into the environment because it's the cheapest way to do it, and they're making money with whatever industry they're in. And there's all kinds of industries that use heavy metals, and that use it doesn't just have to be heavy metals, right? There was the forever chemicals, the perfluorinated hydrocarbons that have now reached Antarctica and everywhere, right, because of DuPont. So there's so many poisons. That's the one thing I'll say. Once we get into conspiracy stuff, I want to make sure, because we're going to be doing channels and talks. Actually, we were just talking about this, where we're going to kind of discuss faith and discuss this idea of God, or discuss a lot of things in the world. And I feel like the logic has to really add up. So no matter what it is, if we just have a theory, the theoretical logic has to add up. And my problem with population control is when you look at history and you understand the most simple supply and demand equations when it comes to economics, as of right now, the rich benefit from more people, not less. So yeah, that's there. On the other hand, yes, the whole world is polluted. I think it's extremely difficult to avoid, poisons of any kind. And then on the frequency level, this idea that they're going to be able to target frequencies that affect our brains. I've been saying for a long time, I believe consciousness is frequency-based, but I don't think it's radio frequency-based. So he's saying the technology has emerged now that they can target whatever the consciousness frequency is, right? And that hasn't been proven yet, guys, at least that I know. And then you're going to get ads delivered to your dreams. I have seen that we're getting into the area of mind reading through the brain scanning and AI. So I know that's definitely happening. There's realistic sides to this conversation where through the AI's ability to process enormous amounts of data, so if we have millions and millions of brain scans, and then we start to give that AI learning material, so we have we have a bunch of people think of a giraffe in their mind while they're hooked up to a scanning machine, and then we feed that data to the AI, then the AI starts to know what a brain scan looks like when someone's thinking of a giraffe, and so now we start getting closer to the territory of mind reading. But I think we're still ways off. Imagine the library that we would have to develop for the AI, which I'm not saying that can't happen, absolutely could happen. But talking about delivering ads to your brain while you're sleeping, I don't think we're there yet. I just got to tell you, I just don't think we've achieved the level of understanding consciousness, because there's still people very much, especially some of the atheistic neuroscience community, is arguing that consciousness is only in the brain as a result of brain activity. So then they don't agree that consciousness is a frequency, or is, that you're susceptible at a conscious level to frequencies outside of your cranium, basically. And I don't agree with them, actually. But I'm just saying, I don't think we're there enough to have had tech that's there that could then create this result. But that being said, I don't think the frequencies we're exposed to every day are probably a good thing. We're being exposed to electromagnetic fields every day, and they're having some sort of quantum effect on our cells, on our molecules, on our atoms, I'm sure. And unfortunately, it's just the world we're living in. I don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. It's probably not a great thing. So if you wanted to protect yourself from that and do a Faraday cage in your whole room at night, it's probably not a terrible idea. I don't know how much that's going to cost you. But I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet for those conspiracies to fully accept them yet. I would need more data. I need more information. Anyone who wants to share stuff that's like verifiable and leaning into giving me more data to go, okay, yeah, it's starting to really sound scary, maybe. But I'm just seeing some logical issues here and there. That's what I would have to say about that.
Okay, today I'm going to explain how everything can be manipulated with frequency. So in one of my previous videos, somebody said, that's so crazy, you can send electricity if it's tuned correctly, and my response to them was, you can actually manipulate anything you want with frequency. So now I'll go ahead and show that comment. So now I'm going to explain what I mean by this. So we have atoms and molecules making up everything. So atoms are positive and negative charges, protons, neutrons, electrons, which means they're electricity because charges electricity. So everything, therefore, is electricity. So electricity, unless it's direct current, it vibrates in some way. So that means it has a frequency. So everything must have a frequency. So proof of this concept is, for example, an opera singer will sing and shatter a glass at its resonant frequency if they sing at the right frequency and the right amplitude. They can shatter the glass. Another example, if we have two tuning forks tuned identical to each other, or made identical to each other, like for example, we have two tuning forks of the frequency 432 hertz, and we hit one of them and one is right next to it, we can make the other one vibrate without even touching it. That's just a few examples.
Where I started to lose him was fairly early on when he said everything is electricity. I get what he was saying about atoms, right? Atoms are comprised of protons, which are positive, neutrons, which are neutral, electrons, which are negative. But the problem I had is I started thinking, well, atoms are what make up matter, right? And then when you think about electricity, again, I'm not an electrician, and again, I'm not a physicist, but when you interact with electricity, you have conductors and semiconductors and superconductors. You have all these type of conductive materials, but you also have insulators. So you have materials that will not conduct electricity, rubbers, plastics, things like that. So I'm not sure because of the mathematical background is where I come from, I pay attention to the way people say things. When somebody says everything or all, so he's saying everything's electricity, I go, I don't know if that's true, right? Are the atoms within rubber molecules, right, are they quote-unquote electricity? And I think his definition of what electricity is, what is electricity? And again, electricity's baffled me ever since I was even a kid. It's really wild stuff. When I talk to electricians who understand it much, better than I do, I'm always like blown away. There's so many different measurements and, volts and amps and ohms, and it's a strange thing. Electricity is a really strange physics, even quantum kind of thing that's going on. But yeah, he said everything's electricity, and I think electricity has to do with some sort of current. I think for us to call something electricity, there has to be current, which means the electrons are, I believe, moving. Of course, I don't know how that works. Like when you have a battery. This is where I get into the place where I just have to say I don't know, because I really don't know. I've never fully grasped the electrical concepts. Definitely no Tesla here, so I don't fully understand how batteries work. I know batteries kind of transition kind of ions or something like this, and that someone would have to explain that too, like how you use the cation and or the cathode and the anode, and this is also kind of how electroplating is done. So somehow there's just an attractive force. And I don't want to explain this wrong because I'm just not an electrician. I don't fully understand it. But I know within a battery there's a potential that's there when the battery is not in use, and then when the circuit is completed, then the cathode materials then start to transport to the anode side. Again, not something I'm great at. But bottom line is, I don't believe everything is electricity because, again, I think you need to define electricity as being this either current or potential for current, and that's not what we're talking about. We're starting to mix ideas here now, because then we're also talking about frequency. Now, frequencies, he's right about that, right? Because I believe within the chemistry world, if we want to identify certain molecular structures, we can use frequency to see what something is. I believe that's what like laser spectrometers are about, laser spectrography types of analysis on chemicals, because each kind of material substance has a resonant, I believe it's maybe a resonant frequency. Again, we're outside of my area of expertise and wheelhouse, so don't want to say anything that's incorrect. All those of you who are physicists and chemists can weigh in here. But so I'm seeing some things that I think are mixed up. This is where we need like a Neil deGrasse Tyson or someone who truly is a physicist, really understands this stuff, and is a fully trained and studied person in these fields. I'm not that. But I'm seeing some things he's saying that I'm going, I'm not sure. The frequency stuff, yeah, I do believe everything does have a frequency, but I'm not also sure how that works. We know that, for instance, in Cuba a while ago, we had our consulate members, become violently ill from what appeared to be a frequency type weapon. And so there's definitely that. But I think, yeah, where we're going with this, let's go further. But I want to point that stuff out. We're ready to let's continue on now.
Another good example of this is radio. So say you're wanting to listen to AM, amplitude modulation, which means it's modulating the amplitude of a wave. But anyway, so say you're wanting to listen to 1,000 kilocycles or 1,000 kilohertz. Well, kilohertz means 1,000 hertz. So anyway, that's a frequency. So 1,000 kilohertz would be roughly 1 million hertz, because you do 1,000 times 1,000, because kilocycles, and there's already 1,000 in front of it. So that'd be 1 million hertz. So say you want to listen to that radio station, well, you're tuning into a frequency. So in order to tune into the frequency you want with radios and stuff, you use what's called an LC circuit or tank circuit. Now I'll show you the definition of an LC circuit, but it basically means an inductance capacitance circuit. Okay, now I'm going to share something very interesting. So our power grid, from the municipal generators all the way to our house, pretty much everything in the U.S. To get electricity to our house, and what we use is 60 hertz. So 60 hertz alternating current. Did you know that radio waves, or radio frequency, or RF, whatever you want to call it, the stuff that goes from your broadcast station to your radios, the stuff you listen to on your radios, is actually alternating current as well. When alternating current reaches a frequency of between 20,000 hertz and 300 gigahertz, it's considered RF, or radio frequency. So yes, you're listening to wireless electricity on your radios. It's not the most efficient way to do it, but it works. There is more efficient ways to do this. So here's another interesting fact. Did you know that we see in wavelengths and light is in wavelengths? There's plenty of other examples of wavelengths, but did you know that wavelength can be converted into frequency? Now I'm going to show you an interesting demonstration. So here I have a diathermy machine. It's from the 1930s. I've already plugged it in. So it's using 60 hertz alternating current. It uses 110 volts at 6 amps, so roughly 650 watts of electricity. Anyway, okay, now I'm going to do my demonstration. I'm actually going to be setting y'all on this music stand so that it doesn't interfere with my phone. Also, before I do this demonstration, I would like to tell you what's going on. Okay, so first, I will touch a metal object to the cauterizing terminal on the diathermy machine, and you will observe that there are only about 1 inch long sparks. Then, after I do that, I will connect this coil to that cauterizing terminal, the bottom of this coil I wound, which, by the way, this coil is wound up to 1/4 of the wavelength of the frequency coming out of this diathermy machine. The frequency on this diathermy machine is about 29 megacycles. So this is 1/4 wavelength of 29 megacycles. So this will act like as a guide, basically, for the electricity. So I have wound this coil to 1/4 of the wavelength of 29 megacycles. This works best with this situation. Actually, with this situation, a half wavelength, a full wavelength, and a quarter wavelength work best in this scenario right here. But if you're doing something else with frequency, like say you're not dealing with this electricity like this, you might find other wavelengths that work better. Okay, now I will do the demonstration with the phone on this music stand right here, so that this hopefully won't interfere with the phone. Okay, here I have a knife. I'm going to turn this on and observe the inch-long sparks. Then I will connect the coil and then observe the sparks. Okay, now I'm going to connect the coil. And I've added this little metal thing on the top. This acts as a capacitor to tune this as well. Okay, let's connect this. Okay, it's connected. I hope, here, let me bring y'all in to see the connection. Okay, there it is. I'm not going to flip my camera because it'll stop the video and I don't want to. Anyway, there's the connection. That's the only connection. Okay, let me put the phone back in here. Now watch this. Now that was just one example of what you can do with one certain frequency. Now with the right combinations of frequencies, or the right frequency, or the right combination of frequency and harmonics, anything is possible. And that's what Tesla means, Nikola Tesla means by his quote, the key to the universe is energy, frequency, and vibration.
Yeah, so I've heard some of the talks about Tesla and what he was up to, and I forget what some of the conspiracies are out there about, he had some far kind of better ideas for the use of electricity being delivered through the air, I believe, was some ideas that Tesla had. Again, this is not my area that I really understand that well. The issue that I have with what happened right there is I think basically it looks like he created a Tesla coil to me. That's kind of what it looked like, a miniature Tesla coil. I don't understand how a Tesla coil really works. Again, I haven't been trained in any of that stuff, so the frequency model makes sense to me. I do absolutely believe that consciousness is part of a frequency, and that we're experiencing a certain wavelength of perception, let's say. But, I don't think there was enough there. I didn't get things, the dots didn't really connect for me 100% on kind of, because we're coming from this conspiracy that they're going to cook our brains with microwaves. And then, in the meantime, I guess before they do that, I imagine it doesn't make sense they would do it after, they're going to be delivering these ads directly to our dreams. And then we have this guy talking about everything's frequency, which I think everything has frequency and is operating within frequencies. It does appear that way. It certainly would make sense almost from the quantum level and even maybe the string theory idea that, you have different oscillating frequencies of, say, like an electron or something like that. But again, you're way outside anything that I would be able to really expound on cohesively. We would need someone that has that information and really has studied that deeply and has a way of communicating it clearly. And I think there's actually many people out there that have that capability. I just, he did a little demonstration there, but I don't know what it proved, is all I'm saying. I'm not sure what we proved there, right? Like, it's not like he transmitted an idea into someone else's brain, or he made something levitate, or there just wasn't anything more there that I've never seen before. I've never seen that little box he had. That was very interesting. I forget what he called it. Very interesting little box. Clearly has this kind of electrical, kind of violent output, but that doesn't shock you. That was interesting to me because I guess that's what's going on with the Tesla coil, kind of static electricity buildup thing that then you get these arcs and plasma coming out. Again, I don't understand any of that as far as at a technical or really studied level because it just isn't the area that I studied or went into, and I don't have time to really put a lot of thought and effort into that these days. But yeah, I'm not convinced yet. I'm convinced that we're experiencing perception at a frequency level, and I think that's correct. I'm not convinced that we've developed the type of technology that could somehow control your mind or infiltrate your mind and give you, some advertising. I am convinced that someone could probably kill you with frequencies. Yes, the Cuban weapon that I mentioned earlier that happened at the consulate is a very real thing. We know they developed frequency weapons that are very disruptive to biological material, in the body. So 100%. But all I'm questioning is what is the true capability. I think there's a science fiction kind of jump there or leap to saying, we're going to implant ads and we're going to, maybe even read your mind and maybe even gain control of your mind. Why not, right? If they can implant ads in your mind, why would we stop there? Why wouldn't we then have you go to your bank and take everything out and give it to the government or give it to whoever it is that's operating this machine, right? Like, there's just some things that I'm not convinced of yet. I'm not saying it's all wrong or all impossible. I definitely think frequencies are a very real aspect of our world and may possibly be what all of this is, that we're literally just living in some sort of wavelength perceptual experience that can be changed, that we can shift. That's where the shamanic psychedelic world comes in, that I could shift to actually a different radio station within the universal frequencies that are out there. Regardless of that, and I don't have the real proof or the physics to understand that further, that's just something I've arrived at through, pretty wild psychedelic experience. But yeah, I'm just not there yet to adopt some of the ideas that were put forward there. I think, I just like to be cautious and take things one step at a time, really see some data. What's the possibilities of the future? Will we reach this? Maybe in the future, this type of stuff will start to become a reality, and that'll be a real scary world. And maybe people are going to be like, see, I told you, that guy on the YouTube channel, he was talking about this. Maybe, but I don't think I'm there yet.
The NTP toxicity study that was done by the United States government, it was released on November 1st, 2018. They did it on nocturnal mammals. They used 1G, 2G, and 3G phones. Okay? This is way before 5G. In those animals, they found humongous problems. You can look this study up on the internet. Every G causes a different resonance problem. Like 1G isn't equivalent to 5. 4 isn't equivalent to 5.
And you mean like different tuning fork issue?
Correct. Certain people have different mitochondrial haplotypes. We also have different skin types. Every single screen, have you ever stopped and asked yourself why we need Dan Huber's glasses? Because they have found through the programs that the government sponsored, at Tulane Neurosurgery and Neurology, it's called MK Ultra, that they were able to control people through light waves, wires in their head to figure out how they can control the behavior of monkeys. That's actually was done in a place close to where I went to medical school. I knew about all of these studies.
So we can be controlled by light waves?
No, not we can, we are.
We are.
Okay, update your knowledge base. Why does every computer have a blue light screen? Why doesn't it come pre-loaded with Flux or Iris? Well, there's a reason for that. Do you know what the reason is? Because the blue light lowers your dopamine and melatonin level so that you become addicted. Who got that information first? Was it the CIA through the MK Ultra program? No, it wasn't. It was the mafia. You know how they got it? It's how they build Las Vegas. They put a city in a desert, in a geopathic stress zone, has shitty water, shitty magnetism, but great light. And then what they do, they put casinos out there, blocked all the light, and put one-armed bandits in there that made nothing but blue light. You know what the mafia found out by doing that? They didn't have to use a gun to stick you up to steal your money. Then they got even smarter. Then they started getting really pretty girls deliver you alcohol drinks for free. So dopamine levels fell sooner. You gave them your money faster. But, hey, can we somehow stop putting the wires in the monkey's head and maybe think about how to do this differently? Because you know that wires in the head deliver electricity, brain works on a DC electric current. That should mean that it must work on light at some level. Well, along comes the people in Silicon Valley in the 50s and 60s, and we get semiconductors. What do we know about semiconductors? When you put electric into it, it makes what? LED. What does LED stand for? A light emitting diode. That's kind of interesting. So when you see the science developing all at the same time, and you realize the criminals were smarter than the centralized doctors. Didn't I tell you that story about the Colombian drug cartel? Isn't this funny how the same thing is happening again? So a guy named Delgado, who's a PhD researcher, he went down to Mexico, where you took your mom, and he put the wires directly into the bull's head and put the guy in there, and they had a remote controller, and they stopped the bull right away from running in to the guy electrically. So then the next part of the experiment was
without electrocution, just electric.
Oh no, you're not going to get electrocuted. It's just electricity.
Yeah.
You modulate the frequency. Look, it's just like Lutron shades you have in your house.
Yeah. Okay. There's just, again, guys making a lot of leaps. There's a lot of leaps going on here. you're being controlled by blue light. What do we mean by control? Are we being influenced? Are we being nudged? Are we, what is the intentionality behind it? Are we sure this is, there's a difference between, like, for instance, there's all this COVID, stuff that went on with this conspiracy theories. And it's like, oh, they released COVID on purpose to, get further control and create that crisis that led to locking down businesses and keeping people shut up in their homes and having to wear masks and stuff. And I definitely think there was a lot of, leeway taken. There was a lot of opportunistic behavior by governmental agencies and people in power that saw an opportunity to control people more. But my question is this: did they do that intentionally, or did they react opportunistically to something that was created by that circumstance, right? So obviously they're studying pathogens all the time. Definitely appears COVID was created in a lab in China, fine, right? Whether I'm right or wrong doesn't matter. We know they study pathogens all the time. It's a very plausible situation in which someone could be studying a pathogen that's released. So whatever, all that makes sense to me. But did they release it intentionally, create a global circumstance that could lead to this kind of world order, you know what I mean, that we're headed towards? Did they do that intentionally? For me, I need the data before I jump into the conspiracy theory. I'm not saying they're incapable of that, because they're not. They certainly could be very intentioned with something like that. But we would need really more data for me to say, yeah, okay, yep, that looks like that's what happened there. The same thing with the blue light stuff. I don't 100% know why blue light was chosen. I don't know enough about these topics, again, when it comes to screen technology and what these tech companies are doing and how they're creating these screens that, have this effect on us. We know that we're affected at a neurochemical level by, the stimulus that's in front of us. So that's definitely happening. But when he starts to go into this bull, cow, steer or whatever situation on the farm, and they got the wires in the brain and they hit this button, and then it stops the cow from approaching someone. Yeah, no shit. That's what a taser does to you. So, and it's not electrocution. That's just called a taser. Now, then taser's a little different, but then what we're maybe talking about, we're talking about just shocking the brain. So maybe it's not like the same as a taser. Taser causes pain. From what I understand, I don't think the brain actually feels pain. But if you hit the brain with electricity, it's going to discombobulate everything. So it makes sense to me that whatever organism that has a brain, whether it's a cow or a human or a monkey or whatever, if you hit it with electricity, it's going to stop dead in its tracks. It's not going to move. Maybe it's going to have a little seizure. Maybe it's going to, right? So far, what I'm saying is, I see a lot of leaps. I see a lot going on. He's saying control. So if I can stop somebody from doing something, it's funny because this is like in law, there's something called prohibitory and mandatory. I understand a little bit about some certain aspects of the legal jargon because I had to go through this with the fight I've been going through with the city Carlsbad. We went through an injunction hearing, and there's something called a prohibitory injunction. Well, a prohibitory injunction stops somebody from doing something, and that's one thing. And to do that, actually to prohibit someone, especially at a kind of municipal or governmental level, is fairly easy to do. You just go, look, they're breaking the law. Here's the legal arguments. Judge, will you prohibit them from continuing on further with threat of consequence X, Y, and Z? Okay, fair enough, right? And that actually is far easier to get granted than what's called a mandatory. And a mandatory injunction is far different than a prohibitory. What it means is they are under threat of consequence forcing you to take action. In my case, the action that would be forced upon me would be to grade this hillside, rip out these walls, do this $1 million project that they want me to do at my own expense. And so they tried to get around due process and actually go through the lawsuit and the jury trial and everything and get the judge to grant a mandatory. So a mandatory is making someone do something, not stopping them from doing something. So I understand that there's a lot more to control, right? One aspect of control is stopping something. So in this example, he's talking about he stops this steer or this bull or whatever with this electric current. Okay, I guess that's the type of control. It is. I would say there's a certain amount of control there. But now, he's not talking about let's make this steer do something. Let's make it rear up on its hind legs. Let's make it roll over. Let's make it, do any number of, walk in a circle. You know what I mean? Let's make it moo, and let's make it moo 3 times, and then do a long moo and a short moo. You know what I mean? Like, make it, that's real control. That's where, if you guys seen the articles, and Vice did an expose on the drug scopolamine, that's where it starts to get far more scary. Because with scopolamine, it appears that some people can actually be controlled, but that's not done. That's not, in my mind, it's not really a radio frequency thing. It certainly has to do with some interaction with your nervous system and scopolamine, and whatever the scientific, explanation for that is, which I don't think they even fully have. But sometimes it appears that people lose free will with the ingestion of scopolamine. It's a different story there. So yeah, I don't know, guys. I don't know about this one. Let's keep going. Let's see.
Goes up and down. Same thing with these controllers. So the next step in their program was, let's get rid of the wires. Let's just put a microchip that's a semiconductor in the brain, kind of like Elon Musk is doing right now with Neuralink, right? Scary, huh? And what do? They were able to control electrically, photoelectrically, wirelessly. So then what did they next do? They said, could we use light to do the same thing? And guess what they magically found? That when you use light, you can control mammals. Their patent attorneys, they own all the patents for blue light technology through screens. Do you think that potentially that all of these things have been used to control different things around you and doing different things? The answer is yes. Why is digital babysitting so successful for parents? Because the baby becomes much easier to control. Have you ever tried to take an iPad away from a 2-year-old that's already addicted to it? One of the things it cleaves to beta endorphin. What is beta endorphin? The natural opiate that your brain makes. So guess what? When you're around this electromagnetic pollution, you lose that beta endorphin, so you need an exogenous hit from dopamine or from... That's how this works. This all came from this study. But I want you to know it graduated from covert work done at institutions like Tulane, at Johns Hopkins, at the Mayo Clinic, at Harvard University. Then it jumped into big tech. Remember the old screens? We didn't use those screens that used to play those stupid video games. Now they became blue lit. And guess who owns all those patents? The guys that control the algorithms. Oh, didn't I mention algorithms to you about centralized medicine? So let me ask you a question. Do you make more or less money when you have obedient idiots as your target audience?
Yeah, it's just, this is where it gets interesting, right? Is everything he's saying wrong? No, right? I think that there's things he's saying that are factual about what's going on neurochemically with us interacting with this tech. And definitely we're seeing addiction, and definitely we're seeing, some dependency. And I definitely would not raise a 2-year-old with a tablet and screen time. But are we controlling people intentionally, like mind control? Like, what does he mean? That's what I mean. Like, until he's able to show me like a study where it was like, make the monkey raise its right hand, and the monkey raises its right hand without training the monkey to raise its right hand and give it a treat and, do all that stuff, where it's actually like the screen made the monkey raise its right hand, and then the screen made the monkey turn around, the screen made the monkey do a somersault, right? Like, it's just, and he's referencing these studies. The problem with referencing studies, and I think a lot of people do it, even myself sometimes, right? Referencing a study, okay, I'm not familiar with the study, first of all, and what were the actual results of the study? What were the parameters of the study? What were the control groups? What really went on in that study? That's what the problem is. It's so easy to just say, hey, the study proved this. And I do it too, like I said. I mean, we all kind of do that because it's like, hey, I'm referencing this data bank, right? This information that's contained within wherever it comes from. In this case, let's say it's like Johns Hopkins or the Mayo Clinic, because he mentioned those, right? But, as of right now, with what he was discussing, I'm not familiar with the study. I don't know how much liberty he's taking with the study and the way he's applying it. I don't know what the actual results were. I don't know really anything, and I've never seen anything like he's talking about, right? I don't feel controlled by my electronics, I'll tell you right now. Yeah, there's a dopamine, I can feel it, I think everybody feels it. You know, if I watch TikTok, there's these certain videos that make me feel a certain way, and it makes you want to go back. You know what I mean? Some videos you watch a bunch of times, you get a hit from it, it's dopamine. Absolutely that's happening. But is it controlling me? It's kind of like, you know, go back into the drug argument, right? Did they invent cocaine to get people addicted, to make billions of dollars, to, like, was that all premeditated to the ultimate degree, like prior to Freud, like, was addicted to cocaine, right? Sigmund Freud, and like when they were first actually extracting cocaine and pure pharmaceutical grades, was the first people going, you know what, it's going to be great. Mwah-ha-ha-ha-ha. We're going to addict everyone, and then we're going to make billions of dollars, and then we're going to create the drug war, and then the drug war, they're going to make billions of dollars because law enforcement's going to be able to do civil asset forfeitures, and the big pharmacy companies, this whole thing's going to have, oh, I can't wait to create this. Like, right? Like, that's the problem with conspiracies. There's a point at which I think there's a lot of opportunism within our human species, that people are very intelligent. And yes, I think there's intentional manipulation that takes place, but I don't think always. Sometimes I think people extrapolate too far, and it's like this ultimate criminal mastermind level of someone that's so intelligent, they were thinking about this, you know, before they were born, and generated these circumstances to this degree. I don't believe that 100% at all, actually. I think it's far more complex than that. I think it's far more opportunistic than that. And I think humans will take advantage and take, you know, opportunistic advantage of certain circumstances. Blue screens, cocaine, behavioral manipulation techniques on people, propaganda, you know, all of that stuff. Yeah, very much so. But I think sometimes the conspiracy just goes a little too far for me, where I'm like, I don't think that people were that far-sighted on things, and could even have known that it was going to result where it went. I'm sure that there were studies being done. You know, it's kind of like the Area 51 stuff and Bob Lazar and what kind of alien technology we're using, whatever. I think some of that stuff's real. I'm not saying it's not, you know, but where is it? Where's the middle ground? Because I think sometimes people just go way too far, right? You know, right? Because there's just, if the capability was there for this stuff, then why are we having any problems with China or Russia or North Korea or any of that? We should just be able to control them right now, right? Or are they engaging in the same, now there's like these frequency battles are happening and we're not aware of it, right? I think there's some holes, is all I'm saying. I think there's a few holes. Yeah. All right, guys, that was an interesting one, right? Like, I think there's a lot more we could talk about, and I bet you if we could get some people on that are far more knowledgeable than me, they might be able to say, hey, you're wrong about this. Look at this data. Look at this stuff that, you know, I understand as an expert, you know, speaking about someone else, that maybe they could add to the conversation. I am just someone who really tries to apply a consistent, logical approach to things. And I try not to be too attached to my own ideas. That's difficult. We all have egos. We all have attachments to some degree. I think the journey towards enlightenment is trying to get away from that. But I do try to be as, you know, neutral as possible, looking at things that are from a logical, just external position on things as much as possible. Of course, we know from quantum mechanics it's also impossible, right? There's no way to remove the observer from the experience, from the experiment. So different perspectives would be welcome there. I did the best I could with some of those subjects, guys. I don't know enough about radio frequencies, electricity, those things. I would need to know a lot more. But it was a good episode. This is me, Dorian. So now you've seen my real face, and we're going to continue on doing these. We're going to be doing TikTok Live, where we can invite guests on and have philosophical debates about the nature of reality and life and psychedelics and the war on drugs and you know, all of that stuff. So hopefully see you over there. See my shirt, go to Psychedelist. If you haven't been on the website, check it out. All right, guys, see you next time. Okay, guys, hopefully you've been liking the content we've been providing so far. We've been covering a lot of different topics here. And, you know, for long form, you're checking us out here on YouTube. Also, you can find us on Rumble for short form. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at ThePemPod. Also, be sure to check out psychedelis.com. There we're providing a lot of different services. We've actually made further progress on the development of the website, which eventually will be an app. You can find treatment options there, including retreat centers, clinical facilities, individual trip sitters, clinicians, facilitators, integration coaches. We've got all that up now, and then we've got something called the Learning Center where you can go if you don't really know that much about psychedelic therapy or you want to learn something about a particular niche there. We will be including that soon. So go ahead and check out all of those areas there if you guys want, and just happy to be here with you. So hopefully have you here taking in more of our content in the near future. Thanks. It'd be great if you left a like, and also if you'd leave a comment would be awesome. We'd love to interact with you guys in the comments below. Also, if you would like to have me react to a video that you choose and that you think would be a good one for me to take a look at, or even a personal video or request of some sort, you can email us at ThePemPod@gmail.com, and I'd love to hear from you and interact with you there.